I'm Bertram de Souza, veteran Mahoney Valley journalist who retired as the editorial page editor and Sunday columnist when the Youngstown Vindicator closed its doors in 2019 after 150 years of publishing a regional daily newspaper. During my 40 years at the Vindicator, I wrote extensively about Youngstown State University, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm also the host of the Scribbler video podcast that's streamed on YouTube and Facebook. Joining me today as co-host is Dr. Taci Turel, professor at the Department of Criminal Justice and Consumer Sciences at YSU. Taci is also the producer of this podcast. In December of last year, The Nation magazine published a story with this headline: Why Fewer International Students Are Coming to the U.S. The article noted that the popularity of America among international students has been steadily declining since 2018. I will add, when immigration antagonist Republican Donald Trump was president, and the number today remains well below pre-pandemic levels.
While the number of international students has been declining nationwide, YSU experienced an increase in the past decade, from 336 students in 2014 to over 1,000 students today. As an international faculty member at Youngstown State University, who was once an international student at Auburn University Graduate School, I have firsthand experience of how challenging life can be for students coming from another country to the United States. In this episode, we discuss the growth of the international student population on campus, the commitments YSU must make to accommodate such growth, and any future challenges. Our guests today are Dr. Nate Myers, Associate Professor in Teacher Education and Leadership Studies, and the former Associate Provost of International and Global Initiatives at YSU. Dr. Peter Norris, an international faculty member from the UK and a professor in Chemical and Biological Sciences at YSU. And Batool Al-Karain, a multifaceted international student majoring in international business and minoring in multimedia and web design. She is the president of the International Student Organization and is actively involved in the International Business Organization and the Student Government Association, SGA. So thank you, Nate, Peter, and Batool for joining us today. Let me start by asking each of you to tell us a little bit about yourselves and in particular, your interest in the international student body at YSU. Nate, you want to start?
Sure, thanks, Taci, and really nice to be with you both today, Bertram. My name is Nate Myers, Dr. Nate Myers. I've been involved in some form or fashion with international programs for well over 15 years now at multiple universities in the public and private sector. And I'm keenly interested in unlocking the power of internationalization that happens when you bring people of different cultures and different backgrounds and different beliefs into a confined setting, whether that be a town, whether that be a university. And you can see the explosion of positive interactions. You can see the progress that people make interpersonally and in terms of their belief system and their awareness about things. And as you mentioned, I think this is an interesting time, both at the university, but also at nationally and at the state level. There's never been more challenges, I think, for the project of internationalization, but there's also never been more opportunity than what we have today.
Peter?
So I've been in the United States for 40 years. I came here as an exchange student from England, the United Kingdom. Got a very good opportunity to study at Toledo. And ironically, or coincidentally, this year is the 40th anniversary of that program. And we had an anniversary celebration in Toledo this past weekend. And all of us who were part of this said it changed our lives completely. Coming to travel to a foreign country, especially some of us who are from more modest backgrounds, having the chance to meet different people from different backgrounds just changed our lives completely. I'm the only one who came back. I came back to Ohio State for my PhD, and then I came to Youngstown because my wife, who was born in South Korea, grew up near Ashtabula. And so we gravitated back to her parents. I try my best to help out international students on campus. I think an international community is essential to a strong, healthy university life. And I can see in my own students at the moment, I have a very diverse group in my class right now, and they seem to enjoy interacting, which they wouldn't get the chance if we didn't bring international students here.
And Batool?
Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Batool Al-Karain. I'm an international student at YSU. I came in 2021 from Jordan. I'm originally from Palestine. My major is international business, and I'm the president of the International Student Organization. So when I started like my journey with the international community on YSU, started with the international department. I started working there. And I was encouraged by the staff and the faculty to be more interactive and to talk with more international students. And we also have like coffee hours. That was like one of the main gateway for me to be able like to establish myself and to meet more people from different cultures and different beliefs. It's not only because of my major, I'm also like passionate about international community, like because I feel what makes us different, also like what should makes us more passionate to get to know each other and understanding ourselves and other people.
Okay, thanks. And both Taci and I were also came in as foreign students. I came in when I was 19, and
Yes.
many years later, I'm still here. But and I've been in Youngstown for 40 years, which is also very surprising for somebody who's not from here. But Nate, let me go with you on this one. In December, The Nation magazine published an article with the headline, "Why Fewer International Students Are Coming to the U.S." The article noted that the lack of opportunities for international students to remain in the U.S. following graduation, the cost of U.S. schools, and the lack of an inclusive environment of factors in the decline. But that does not seem to be the story at YSU, as numbers have shown and as we had talked. So explain that. Explain what is occurring and what has occurred at YSU to make it so attractive to international students. And I know a lot of them, by the way, because I interact with them and I see them. So go ahead, Nate.
Sure. Yeah. And thanks for the lead in. To preface all this, the number of international students in total coming from foreign countries to the United States since World War II, it's grown every year with the exception of 2 years. And I bet you can guess which 2 years. The first year happened right after 9/11.
Right.
The number went down. And I think the second year was right after the pandemic. And, but otherwise, it's been a huge growth curve in a positive direction. And so in total, the numbers of international students have grown over the last 60, 70 years. And now the composition has changed. If you look at the number one sending country, for instance, in 1950, it was Canada. That is no longer the case. Right now, India occupies the top spot, just overtook China a few years ago. And so, there's a variety of push and pull factors that are always at work, pulling, students from here, and a variety of things that has happened really at a national level, but also at an institutional level too, various institutions, to make institutions more attractive. And on the other side, there's some push factors, those push factors are, when an economy really, there's a sweet spot for an economy when economies that are developing, such as Vietnam, for instance, right now, such as India, where people are really creating a good middle class living, and
right.
They want to create some more opportunity and can afford to do that. And so those factors are always at work. Now, for instance, when I came to YSU in 2016, I think there was 180 students enrolled, international students, and 120 of them were probably from Saudi Arabia on full government scholarships. And so, and those were just students who sort of found us, and the other 60 students somehow found us too. And so that year, really, we put a plan in place to really sell. I hate to use the word sell, but to emphasize the value that YSU presented. And so, when I first came here, I always thought that the Youngstown State was really a diamond in the rough, that it had a story that needed to be gotten out there and told better. And so that's what we've spent really the balance of the last 7 years doing. I stepped down from the international office about a year ago, but and over that time we grew from 180 to 1,000 students, and really it's been a success story. And I think it's due to certainly the hard work of the people there, but also to YSU's reputation for value. And we offer a very good education for a very reasonable tuition. And so that's certainly part of the success story, but it's also getting the right rooms and talking to parents and students. And it's a big decision when an international student, there's this thought out there that, well, we'll just let them know and they'll come. And I don't think that could be further from the truth. Perhaps Batool has some ideas about this, but it's a huge decision. You're talking about the rest of your life. And how many of us, right, as parents, would send our child away to a university without ever having stepped foot on campus, or just investigating the website? I would venture to say that none of us would. And so there is the very real aspect that there's a lot of it's not necessarily marketing, but bridge building and talking through all the different scenarios with parents, with students, and with guidance counselors, so that they can be assured that we're going to take care of their children.
Right. And Peter, I know you have a lot of international students, especially in the STEM program. In your opinion, what are the most significant contributions that international students make to the academic and research community at YSU?
We can't function without them, to start with. Every university I've worked at, which is 6 now on this side of the ocean and here, and in the UK, chemistry runs through international students. At Ohio State, a good third of the students are international. At YSU, a good maybe half of them are international. There is a problem in the United States of trying to get students in high school to do science. They seem to get pushed towards medicine. If you're good at numbers, go be an engineer. If you're good at science, go be a physician. And that's unfortunate, because we're missing out on a lot of people who'd make very good scientists. So my understanding is, when I was at Ohio State, I wasn't there, I wasn't taking somebody's place. I was there because they couldn't get somebody with my qualifications to go to Ohio State. And it's the same at YSU. So I've graduated 54 master's students at YSU, and a good third of them were from Africa or from India. And again, as a scientist and a researcher, I can't do what I do without people to do it with. They do the experiments. So if we're not taking people from overseas, we're not going to have a very flourishing master's program.
And Batool, I know the challenges that international students, I go so far back, we were called foreign students at the time, not international students, that foreign students face on campus, but also living in the community. So tell us about your experiences and what you hear from other international students about being at YSU, living in Youngstown, the Youngstown area. Give us some insight.
From my experience, to be honest, it was really hard to adapt and to get used to the culture over here, because we come to America, all we know about America is what we see on Netflix. We come over here, we have the culture shock, and just like a whole new country, new language, new culture. But my first semester at YSU was so quiet. I would just go to classes and go back home. I didn't have a job, or anything. Like, I didn't even had a circle of friends to get to know and talk. But I was encouraged to apply for a job, which was posted by the international department. And I started working, my next semester, I started working with the international department, and that opened to me so many doors to get involved on campus, get involved also with the organizations, get to know more people. I feel like what makes life easier as an international student is having friends and a supporting system around you, whether they're friend, family, or staff or faculty on YSU. And I believe I owe half of my success to the international department, because I was motivated by them and encouraged and pushed by them to get out of my comfort zone and get to know people. But at first, like I started in the International Student Organization. I was the programming chair, and then I became the vice president, and I ended up as the president. And I can say, like, since I came here, all I knew was ISO, which is the International Student Organization. We have done a lot of events to put all the international students together and make them share their traditions, their culture, and also make domestic students get to know like other cultures. We also had hosted like international festivals and prom night, because most of us, like, we don't have prom nights at our high school when you come here. So I would say that YSU and somehow, like, the staff, the faculty again, make life easier for the international students and motivate them all the time.
Good, great. Nate, you mentioned the increase in international students at YSU, and I was looking at the numbers from Ohio State. Their numbers actually dropped during the time that YSU's numbers went up. So the increase in the number of international students brings more demands on the university to accommodate the unique needs of those students. What are some of the programs university has enacted to address those needs?
I think that Batool just mentioned several of the initiatives that we've really tried to, that over the last 5-6 years, the university's tried to emphasize more social opportunities, more support for activities that will cause students to integrate, and those are all very important. But that's not sort of the main dish. The main dish is that students need to obviously be successful. They need to do well in their classes, and when they graduate, there needs to be good, solid, well, before they graduate, there needs to be internship opportunities. There needs to be student jobs, and then there needs to be post-graduation work available. And these are all sort of expectations and things that it's incumbent upon the university to do the hard work to help provide. And so, I think the university has done a nice job more recently of building out more sort of staffing capacity, for advising. I want to also mention, to harken back to what Batool said, I've heard it from student after student. Student work opportunities are so important. That unlocks a new world. It's not, we think about work, student work as a paycheck, and that's an important aspect too. But I think the real key thing there is to unlocking the working in an American environment, in an American office, interacting with Americans in a different way. It's not only Americans, but different people from different countries all over the world. And so, and really to emphasize what Peter said, the draw at YSU seems to be STEM. And, it seems to be especially computer science, but also, the wider STEM fields. And that's been a real success story as well. And so part of it is the university is, providing more support, but also the other part of that equation, Taci, is that the university, or the more enrollment is coming into programs. You mentioned Kent State and Ohio State. These are two universities that have very large Chinese enrollments historically. One of the things that's happened with China, and it's both ways, both from a sending perspective, we're becoming less attractive as a nation, but also it's become more difficult for Chinese students, and anecdotally from reports we hear, to get visas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah. And so, back when the rush was on in the 90s, when universities went to China to try to enroll students, I think that Youngstown State didn't go. And so, that probably ironically worked to our advantage, over the long term.
So then this is a question for all of you, and Batool, you might not want to answer given your position, and I'll start with you, Peter. While the growth of international student population of YSU is a success story, there are storm clouds that cannot be ignored. The new president of the university, Bill Johnson, a former Republican right-wing congressman, has embraced Donald Trump's anti-immigration positions. has Johnson said anything that would give you reason to be optimistic about the future of the international student body at YSU? Peter, let me start with you.
I haven't heard much so far, so I'm kind of neutral on that. But let's frame this in terms of economics. Immigrants drive economic progress. If you look at, I've got a picture in front of me of the Nobel Prize winners in the United States from 2000. 40% of them were born overseas. If we cut that pipeline off, we're going to lose out in terms of technology. We're going to lose out in terms of cutting edge, and those students will go elsewhere. If my Nate will probably correct me on this, but I think students started going towards Canada instead of coming towards the US. We're losing out economic advantage if we do that. You look at the leaders of the main technology companies now. The founder of Google, Sergey Brin, is Russian. The head of Alphabet right now, which is Google, Sundar Pichai, who's born in India. These are people who drive economic development. So if we're going to cut those people off, especially in a place like Youngstown, which is difficult to get people to come to, right? You know, I'm here because my wife's from Northeast Ohio. We're going to cut ourselves off. We're going to cause more damage than necessary for short-sightedness.
I want to chime in briefly, if I'm able. Peter's absolutely right. 15 years ago, you know, in my travels, you never heard anyone who wanted to go to Canada. All of a sudden, in the last 6 to 8 years, they've really become aggressive nationally, and it's a policy driven from the national level, that because they realize this is an arms race. In Ohio, in the state of Ohio itself, universities, college and universities contribute over 8% of the total state's GDP. And, you know, it's over $800 million in economic impact a year. And international students are a big part of that. You know, a Harvard University study found that the higher the concentration of international students in a locale tends to correlate with a higher level of economic development. And for every international student that is hired for a job, on average, 2 more domestic individuals are employed, basically in you know, as a butterfly effect.
Nate, has Bill Johnson reached out to you because of your background and your position with the International Student Organization to get any kind of knowledge, glean any knowledge from you about what the reality is on college campuses?
Well, I haven't reached out to him, you know, and that's on me. You know, he has said very positive things. He said he's here to be the president of everyone, and so I think, you know, I'm of the generation where I take someone at their word, and you know, right. show me otherwise. And of course, you know, you mentioned some of the rhetoric coming from the national level, not helpful, and it causes a great deal of angst, you know, internationally.
And Batool, as president of the International Student Organization, have you had a chance to sit down with the new president and his administration to talk about?
Unfortunately, no, I did not have the chance to.
And they have not reached out to you?
No, I don't think so.
I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you, did you expect them to do it? But what are you hearing from other international students about President Johnson and the administration with regards to the international student body?
I want to say, like, at the beginning, like, they were kind of afraid and concerned because what we heard about him. But now, like, whatever, like, their concern or their thing or their fear, it's kind of faded away. I've seen a couple of stories with him for, like, being with the international students. But one thing that I could say, being an international student, came here when the President Trussell was a president.
Right.
I can say for us, like, or my friends and many people, it's kind of hard when we compare President Trussell to anyone because we love him so much. So to be honest, so yeah, like, it's kind of hard to see anyone like comparing to President Trussell.
Well, Trussell took the lead, didn't he? Trussell was a people person. He went out and took the lead, and he did what I think we all should do, which is say hello to everybody and good morning, how are you? As I try to on campus. If I see a group of students who are maybe from Nepal or from India, I just go out my way and say, good morning, how are you? Just to make sure they're okay, right? And just to have, you know, nobody knows I'm foreign until I open my mouth, and then I sound ridiculous. It's a sad statement, isn't it? But that's what it is. So I'm willing to give the new administration a chance and see where things go. But once they start to realize how, the driving force, or it is a driving force. People come here, not everybody stays here. Of the group of 4 I came with in 1986, I'm the only one who came back and stayed. And the others went back and had careers in the UK and Europe. But the chance of recruiting good people and then helping them grow and helping them feel at home, helping them feel comfortable, and maybe thinking about establishing themselves here is essential, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, right. It is important for international students to feel welcome. And a lot of the increase goes by the word of mouth. Students bring other students from other countries.
That's true.
So, as you know, I'm from Turkey, and when I came to the United States as a graduate student, US was one of the best options for graduate school or higher education. However, today in Turkey, I'm hearing from Turkish students that they are being encouraged to apply to universities in Europe or Canada instead of the United States because of the belief that the standards of higher education in the US has declined. Is that something you hear from the UK or Europe, Peter?
No. Like I said, I was one of the first 4 people on this program 40 years ago, and they've had 560 people go backwards and forwards from the UK and the US, and they're still getting people lining up to come over here to be part of this program. And the main thing I think is it's affordable, and it's kind of unique because you get a full year. You're here for a full year, not just a semester. And then in terms of people, going back, most people go home, some people stay. But yeah.
Well, and regarding YSU, you kind of answered that question, but are you worried about the academic impact on YSU if the number of international students declines?
I get some exceptional domestic students. Not all the international students are top students. Not all the local students are bad students. It's very uniform. It's very across the board. At the moment, some of the best students in my class are international. If we start to lose those people, yeah, we probably would suffer in the long term because they tend to be better students in general.
And Batool, there's talk about, are you concerned about the lack of opportunities for international students to remain in the US following graduation? And what are your plans after you graduate? Because the story that I referred to from The Nation talked about how difficult it is for international students to get, work visas, after they graduate. So talk about that from your perspective.
Yeah, it's actually difficult for us to find a job or a work visa after we graduate. What I believe that we're allowed to have an OPT, which is, I think, for 90 days, if I'm correct, I'm not sure, to work in something that related to our major. That's not the problem. Finding a job is the problem. I have so many friends who graduated and they're still in the area in Youngstown trying to find a job, whether they're a graduate student or an undergraduate student, and no matter what is the major. But YSU, I feel like they're trying to fix this issue. For example, Williamson College of Business, every semester they host an event called the Employee Day, where they encourage students to show up to this event and talk with other employers so they can have an internship with them. Different companies always come to the event and talk with the students, offer them internships and work. But sometimes it's kind of difficult because we're international students and we're on F1 visa. But I feel like the progress on this issue is being processed, and they're trying to fix this issue.
And just to correct you, I'm not sure what it is today, but OPT is for 1 year, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I know
Yeah.
it used to be 2 years for STEM students.
Yeah.
It's 1 year for everyone, and then STEM students get an additional 2 years. So it's 3 for STEM.
So, if you want to, and then Peter, if you want to talk about this, what happens to these international students after graduation? There's obviously, if it's so difficult to get work visas, and these are, obviously good students, there's a brain drain from this country, isn't there?
Yeah,
Go
it
ahead.
is a brain. It is a brain drain. And this is quite a turnaround from 25 years ago when a certain former Speaker of the House from Georgia said that if you get a STEM degree from United States University, you should get a green card stapled to your degree on the way out.
Yeah.
If you know who we're talking about.
Yep.
And that was, you know, welcome. We've trained you. You understand our system. You're happy here, hopefully, and welcome. Let's see what we can do. And especially in a time of almost full employment where we're struggling to fill positions,
Yep.
It's exactly the time to do this.
Nate?
Yeah, I agree. Not sure, I can add much more than that. I mean, it's as I mentioned, the international students who are enrolling in American universities are predominantly either business or STEM, and they bring with them typically a core education background that, frankly, American students do not have, and a set of experiences certainly that most American students don't have. And as a country, let's get beyond economics. Of course, this is good economically to have highly trained people, intelligent people, come and be permanent residents and citizens. That's not even an argument. I think that past the business angle and the economic angle, this country has a very, very long history of welcoming people who are different from all one another. Very few people can claim to be natives of America, certainly here in Mahoning County. And,
right.
So to the extent that this is my country or your country, this is our country. And, it's incumbent upon all of us to sort of roll out the welcome and figure out how to make it work. Who can imagine this, would the steel mills have ever happened had immigration not occurred here? No, it wouldn't have. They would have stayed in Pittsburgh or fled out to Gary, Indiana.
And actually, in Turkey, they always talk about this brain drain because a lot of the best and the brightest students from other countries come to the United States. So these are not the average students usually, because most of them get scholarships to come here. The government supports them to send them to the United States to study. So those are some of the best students who are able to get those scholarships and come here. And then when they stay in the US, the other countries worry about their own brain drain. But if we send them back, obviously,
Yes.
we are educating those students, and then they go back and do not participate in our own economy, right?
Yeah. And I think this is a story, actually, Taci, that America tells poorly, from a national level, because, we have no, it's no secret, we have no functional national immigration policy, right? This has sort of been a running gun battle over the past 40 years about what are we going to do about immigration. So the only rational way to attract and to retain very good ethical citizens who are going to contribute to our national life and to our national economy is through the F1 visa program. Students come as F1 visas, they get internships, employers say, where have you been all my life? I couldn't have hired anyone of this caliber otherwise. And they sponsor them for an H1B. And that's the way it should work. And, certainly YSU could sponsor, and certainly does sponsor H1Bs as well.
Well, since you mentioned that, I do want to ask about the situation about international faculty at YSU and the support of YSU for international faculty, because this has been a growing issue. And Nate, I don't know if you have any comments on that, because I'm hearing from a lot of international faculty that they do not get enough support. They are not sponsored for the H1 visa or the work visa. And a lot of them go back and they leave YSU after working here for 1 year or 2 years, and they don't have a work permit. They decide to leave where they can get their work permit.
Well, if you look at our STEM college, I mean, I think in Peter's sort of the examples of this, it would be impossible really to staff our STEM college without the welcoming foreign nationals on the H-1B visa program. Not possible. We would have a faculty shortage if we couldn't sponsor STEM faculty on H-1Bs. And so the H-1B program is necessary, especially in STEM, but also in other areas too. I mean, I think the question is, in other hard to fill categories, which are not faculty positions, should we sponsor H-1Bs for, those individuals too?
It has improved over the past 40 years, or 20. I've been here 28 years, so it's improved over the past 27 years, shall we say, since I was here as an H-1B faculty member. But it does seem to have sort of drifted off a little bit in terms of how things are done and how the understanding of how things are done. And also the sort of, you've got to feel empathy with people who are halfway around the world and their visa paperwork is getting stuck, or somebody doesn't quite understand what the needs are. And that sort of thing isn't really helpful. And then we do get some very good some very good faculty members who come here, kind of get fed up with some things, then go somewhere else. And it takes a lot of money and time to hire good people, and we try to keep them. And if we don't offer them the services that other schools do, for whatever reason, then we're going to lose out on, we're just wasting money, we're wasting time, because those people have gone somewhere else.
It's an arms race, and it's up to us whether we're going to participate in the arms race for knowledge workers.
And Batool, you had mentioned Jim Tressel, and while he and I had a rocky relationship when he was president, and prior to him becoming president, after he retired, he kindly agreed to do a very long interview podcast with me about his tenure, and he sang the praises of the international students. And in particular, he talked about how when you come in as an international student, you don't have the luxury of staying indefinitely in college. You have a window. You have to graduate in 4 years because you can't afford not to graduate in 4 years. And he loved that about, the international students and their work ethic and the way they studied. But looking at YSU, and there has been a growth in the numbers, what else does the university need to do, in your opinion, to continue this growth and to continue attracting international students? Batool?
I believe to host more events like the Meet the Employee Days, open more opportunity for the students to find internships in the area or outside like the state. Again, like more events, and make sure like there's a follow-up, because we meet with these companies, we talk with them, we send an email, but we never like hear back from them. So that's like a problem. If there could be like some kind of like program where we can like enroll in, where they're gonna make sure after we graduate, we have like an internship or like a job. And after that, like they can just leave it on us, whether we have a work visa from that company or not. I feel like we feel more secure and more like comfortable having such a program. Feel like there's something like supporting us, like we're gonna feel more confident. And I feel like to encourage more like students to come to YSU, I feel the current formal head of the international department is doing it right now. Like he's trying to, we've been like the international department have been doing this thing for like ever, recruiting students and from outside the country. Like I remember Dr. Nate used to go to Nepal, India to visit like the campuses and talk with the students. Dr. Mima is also following his lead and doing the same thing. Right now, he's in Brazil. He's recruiting students. So I feel like opening these kind of stuff would allow more students to come, especially like going to countries where YSU does not have students from, like Brazil. We don't have a lot of students from there. And Turkey, like we have few also students from there. So I feel like going there also and inviting them to come to YSU will be like a great thing to do.
And just before we leave that topic, are there enough programs on campus to make international students comfortable? For example, I know a student from India who lives in one of those apartments, and he has 3 American roommates in the suite and gets along very well with them. In fact, one of them is taking him home, took him home for the vacation, for holidays and all of that. But when he needs, for example, to go to the grocery store, he has to, one of them will give him a ride, or he has to wait for, and it's sort of this thing. And a lot of the Hindu students, for example, would like to go to temple. And I was talking to one of the Hindu doctors who's sort of, very sort of a big financial supporter of the temple. And I said, you need to provide transportation for these kids so that they go worship at the temple. And so I'm wondering, are there enough of these programs, or are they more needed?
So,
And then Nate, I'd like you to weigh in on this, and also Peter.
so I don't live on campus, but I've been like part of the international orientation. During the program of the international orientation, we teach the students how to use the shuttles, Walmart shuttles. It's part of YSU. If they live on campus, they can use it. It would take them to Walmart and specific areas in places in the areas. Also, we teach them how to use the bus station, how to take that bus to the mall, to Target, or any places around the area. But being a student who does not live on campus, I have no idea like what kind of program they could use or more, or what they should improve.
I wonder.
Peter, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Nate, jumping in. I wonder if we could do more to help the domestic population understand international students, because I say this in my class because I'm big and I'm in charge. I was a foreign student. I didn't go home for the holidays. I stayed in a room and I had to figure things out. I didn't have a car. You're right, get on the bus and that sort of stuff. That doesn't seem to happen here for the domestic population. But give them some idea in the freshman orientation about there are now a large number of people from other cultures who go and meet these people. Go and say hi. Americans are incredibly friendly when you get to know them, but they just need, maybe some of these younger people need that nudge to do things. And I'll mention it in class. We've got Iranian students, we've got Bahamian students, we've got Nigerian students in my class, and they're probably not going home during the breaks. They're probably stuck in the dorm somewhere. Let's sort of get some atmosphere of communality, is that the word? Community, and see if we can help those people out a little bit and help them feel more at home. And then the domestic students will get so much out of that.
True.
I think the university has made great strides in this area, really, over the last decade. But of course, there's still room to grow. My own opinion of this, and I think that there is, in some ways, the region is blessed by the diversity that we do have, and so we have the ability to buy a kosher food locally. We have the ability, well, within an hour, to reach reasonably good Asian grocery stores. And so, a little bit of communication goes a long way, I think. Both communicating with that, I think it's a wonderful idea as as the population grows, to integrate more of it's not necessarily orienting international students, but orienting domestic students to really the reality that they're increasingly entering in here, because it's changing the face of the university.
Right.
Actually, to add to that conversation, I have heard from one of the local radios, and I realized there's a perception among Americans that when YSU and other universities are recruiting international students, they are depriving American-born students from attending college. Is there any basis to this perception?
None. There's no basis to this perception. We can't enroll enough domestic students. Our domestic student enrollment has been in free fall, really, for the last 3 or 4 years. And so the enrollment of international students has saved some of our programs to the benefit of everyone, including domestic students.
Mm-hmm.
Peter?
Well, we get back to this idea that, I don't know how the US population is in terms of stagnation or growth, or we're losing population, but we can't fill jobs. We are struggling to fill high-level jobs. And this whole idea of recruiting people, making them feel welcome, and then give them the chance at the end if they want to stay. And most people won't stay. But it's the American way, isn't it? This is how this country grew, was taking people in and giving them a chance. And I don't think I've met any lazy immigrants here. I think people here are go-getters. You listen to Batool's resume down there. If I can hire you, I will. You're a go-getter. You're everything I see in American. What I grew up looking at for what America was. Batool, she exemplifies that, and we need more of that.
Batool, And when you came in as an international student, did you face this any kind of comments about, what are you doing in this country and why are you on this campus? You're depriving a native born American from a position on campus. Have you heard any of that, or do you
I would
think
say that I was lucky enough to not hear anything and only get stares. That's it.
Do you hear from any other students, any other international students facing
when
any kind of discrimination or hardship?
I would say not a lot. Not what would you expect.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And this is for all of you, because we're getting to the end. Donald Trump, who may well be president again, has wondered aloud why America isn't attracting more immigrants from, quote, nice countries, such as Denmark. The message is clear. And I mean, he has not shied away from this. He wants more Europeans to come to America as opposed to people from non-European countries. So what are the chances of YSU attracting students from Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Switzerland, the way it's attracting students from India, Pakistan, Nepal, and African countries? And Nate, go ahead.
Not as good. And however, the University of Youngstown State has been successful in enrolling a few Western Europeans who are not athletes. Usually those folks are athletes, but there are a few Germans and a few Austrians, Batool may know them, who have come here and chosen to study, and we've enrolled them. Now, I will say, I mean, the way I look at your question is if you look at, historically, there's been a strain of nativism in American politics really in every generation. And sometimes it ebbs and flows. It's higher, sometimes it's lower than other times. But look, if we were having this conversation in the 20s, the nativists would have been railing against Italians and Irish coming in. And why can't we attract more people of British stock? If we were having this conversation in the 1890s, that they would have been railing against the Czechs and the Hungarians. And so, I think and my ancestors came from Germany, and why do they speak so much German in Pennsylvania? So it's I'm reminded, this is just basic manners. When you say that you have to walk a mile in someone else's shoes before you can criticize them, and this is what good parenting is, and it's what all of our parents taught us, that you have to take a minute and consider before you really, you criticize someone else, and especially attack them. That's very serious. So, I think that America should be rolling out the welcome mat for a variety of reasons: economic, cultural, et cetera, historical, and this native strain, I think, historically is one that's going to pass.
Peter?
Well, despite Brexit, I'm still a European. And people won't come here from Denmark because Denmark has everything the Danish people need. They have a good, stable society, they're safe, and they have good healthcare, and they have a relaxed society that takes care of people. Not so much the UK anymore. The UK is kind of crumbling post-Brexit, but France, I don't see any French people here because it's just as good at home. Now, the students I get to deal with a lot are from Kenya, Eastern Africa, and they are extremely intelligent people. They are English as a first language. They write just as well as any domestic student, but they don't have the infrastructure in Kenya to do science as we would want them to. So they're coming here because we have millions of dollars of instrumentation in Ward Beecher that they just look at and like, wow, they're like a kid in a candy store. And you get them going and they just get into it. And all those kids, all those students now have gone on to PhDs at American universities, and some of them will stay and some of them will go home. All right. So yeah, the Western European thing won't happen. It won't happen here. I was the only English guy at Ohio State in my chemistry program, and most of the people were from East Asia, from the Middle East, and from Africa. So,
Batool, I don't know. I don't think Donald Trump was thinking about Palestine and Jordan as one of the nice countries when he talked about that.
Yeah, of course not. Yeah.
Give us your take on this about. Go ahead.
I would just echo what Dr. Peter said. I mean, European would not come to America because they have everything they need in their own country. So what is their need to come to America and study when there is tuition, good health system? So there is no need for them to come to America. Meanwhile, students like me who have like wars or genocide or economic falling down in their country, they feel like the need to go to another country to have a better future and leave their own country and their own home because we don't have an opportunity to find a job or like establish ourselves in our own country. So the reason we can attract students from nice countries because the nice countries are, like he said, nice countries, they have everything provided for them, and us, we're not like everything provided.
And I do think that there are a lot of great academicians in some of those countries that are not supported by their governments with funds, and we have all these grants and opportunities that we can get. And I have a lot of friends in Turkish universities, for example, who are academicians and they're scientists. And when they come to the United States, they're just amazed at the opportunities. And they think, if we had this in Turkey, we could have done so much research. We could have published a lot more, but we don't have the money for it. We don't have the funds for it. And I think US provides that for people coming from those countries.
Or even coming from the West, coming from Western Europe. I came here because Ohio State gave me a stipend and a teaching assistantship. I couldn't afford to do a PhD. But as soon as they said, we'll pay your tuition and we'll pay for your stipend, yes, thank you. I'll be there as soon as possible. And it was, it's a very progressive system. It's the same in Canada, and it's always attracted people, and hopefully it continues.
And talking about Canada, I have family in Canada, not surprisingly, but when Donald Trump talked and the Republicans talk about clamping down on immigration, it was telling that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau actually came out and publicly said, we're going to take in 1.5 million immigrants, and we are opening our doors to them because we need people who can fill jobs. We need people who are educated. We need people who are in STEM and all of these things. So there is a different perception of the role of today's immigrants play in countries like America and in Canada, right? Yeah. Batool, before we leave, I wish you all the best. I really do hope that after you graduate, you have an opportunity to pursue your studies or pursue whatever you want to do, and are able to stay if you want to stay in this country, because as Nate said and Peter said, this country does need people, students like you and individuals like you, and so I do wish you all, and Nate and Peter, thank you for your time. Appreciate this. This was an interesting conversation. Taci and I are going to do a second part to this, which is going to be an overall conversation about immigration policy and the politics of immigration, especially where the Republicans are going to focus it on the November election. So thank you all three.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Bye-bye. Well, Taci, I'm glad you are now co-hosting the podcast with me. It's my pleasure. We talked about it almost a year ago, right? About doing it.
Right. You did ask me about a year ago if I would produce your podcasts, and of course I was too busy with work and as a faculty at YSU, but now that I'm leaving YSU, I think I will have more time to be the co-host and to be the producer of the podcast.
What was the faculty position? What did you teach, and what has happened to that program?
Was merchandising in fashion and interiors. And first, our program got consolidated and placed in the Department of Criminal Justice, and that didn't work very well, obviously. And YSU decided to close the program instead of investing in the program. It was ranked as a grow program by the company YSU hired, and it had a lot of potential, but we really belonged in the business school. We should have been in the business school. And I tried very hard to move our program into the business school, and that didn't happen for some reason. So YSU decided to do the easier thing and close the program. And so we are on a teach out right now, and I am just waiting to graduate all my students this year, at the end of this year. There will be some who will be graduating next year, but YSU couldn't wait.
As you said in the introduction, you're originally from Turkey,
Yes.
and you came to the States when and to do what?
I came right before 9/11, and I came as a master's student in Auburn University at the textile engineering program. And
From Turkey to Alabama.
from
Nice.
Turkey to Alabama. And I studied there for about 6 years or 7 years. I did my master's, and then I started the PhD program. And after I finished my PhD in polymer and fiber engineering, I started a postdoc in the University of Southern Mississippi for a year. And then I got the job at YSU and came here. I continued doing the research at University of Southern Mississippi for a while in the summers while I was here. And then I have been at YSU for 15 years, and this will be my last year.
And the reason I had reached out to you is because I was aware that you have a great deal of interest in production, videography, the internet, and
Right.
you've also had, you're taking courses and you had some training,
Well,
right?
when I was at Auburn University during graduate school, I had an interest in film production and video production. And I always wanted to make film and produce films. And I took a great course, and I really enjoyed it. And I never thought that it would be helpful to me until the COVID happened, and we had to go online and we had to record our lectures. So I started doing a lot of recording and editing of my own lecture videos for the students. We had to go online for many of our courses, and there is a push to go online.
Right.
At the university right now. So I have become an expert in making videos.
Yes, you have.
Because I have been doing that for my lectures. So I guess, this is something that I would enjoy doing.
And the other thing too is, as you're well aware, my perspective is, I'm a journalist, and great deal of interest in politics. And it's sort of been very narrow. I've been very narrowly focused on politics in the university and all of that when I was working for the newspaper. And you sort of are bringing in a different perspective. And I think what I've always wanted this podcast is to go beyond my interest, and to try and, go and deal with other issues out there. And I know that you've got some ideas as to some of the other issues we can pursue, which I'm hoping will sort of increase our viewership. So
Right. I think there are a lot of different topics that we can cover, and Youngstown being such a little bit isolated, I would say, and I don't think there's anybody else who does what you are doing, to cover local politics and local issues, the university especially. So I really enjoy hearing your perspective and listening to your podcast. So I believe there's a lot that we can do for this community as well.
And so, today's podcast, where we both co-hosted with Nate and Peter and Batool, I think that sort of was what I was hoping for. It sort of gave not only I was able to ask the political questions, but your perspective as coming from the university was important to put things in context. And I think that was very well done. So I appreciate it. And we're looking forward to doing some more of this.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.